setting Washington's agenda. The Morning Majority, 5 to 9 on 630 WMAL.
8:37 on WMAL. Brian Neiman, Brian Wilson. Mary Catherine has the day off. Joined now by Erick Erickson of RedState.com. Morning, Eric.
Good morning.
So, lot to get to this morning. I do have to ask you first, with what's going on in Libya, it looks like Gaddafi is gone or will be gone in a matter of hours or days or whatever. The rebels will have control, I guess, of the country. And I don't know where you stood on the whole humanitarian effort and the kinetic military activity involved in Libya from the get-go. But now that he seems to be gone, was it all worth it?
You know, I'm not sure that it was, if only because it still looks more and more like what we know about this group of I don't know that you call them rebels now, this new government that may be shaping up in Libya, is that by and large a good chunk of them were Al-Qaeda in North Africa, and we've largely now given them their own country.
Yeah, that's my concern, is that, you know, what's going to replace them, and will they be any better than Gaddafi?
Yeah, you know, it looks very much like they're not going to be better than Gaddafi. We know just based on how they were treating citizens in Benghazi that they were pretty much as bad as Gaddafi. You know, I always said that what we needed to be doing is not engaged in Libya in a kinetic military action or anything else. We just need to be rooting for injuries.
All right, so and I understand where you're coming from this point of view. It's the what do you do over there? Because there are people who say they're, you know, hawks are like, well, we got to do something in Syria. We need to do something even in Iran. But what happens if Assad goes in Syria? I mean, what are we going to do to come in place? I mean, I believe that what we learned from Iraq was that it's pretty easy for the United States to go in and take out a dictator or take out a government, but then we're not really good at putting the pieces back together. It's almost impossible.
You know, Libya never, or Egypt for that matter, never really served our strategic interests. I mean, the Libyan dictator Gaddafi was willing to shut down his nuclear program and basically give up the ghost, and he hated Al-Qaeda as much as us. Syria, I think, is more in our national interest than Libya, because if Bashar al-Assad were to fall, it would be a huge blow to Iran, and we need to do something to begin destabilizing the political regime in Iran.
But why do we believe that things will be better in Syria or even better in Iran if those guys go?
Well, when you look at the dynamics in Syria and Iran, and I'm not an expert, but I did grow up over there, when you look at the opposition leaders in Syria and Iran who have largely been repressed but have huge popularity among the citizenry, in Syria and Iran both, their citizens are much more westernized than what you saw in Libya and frankly what you even saw in Egypt. They're much more westernized. They have a very strong British influence on them, given the British Empire that really didn't even go away for them until the 1950s, 1960s. And in Iran, we see a younger class of citizen there who is very much not wedded to the revolution of 1980.
Eric, I want to turn a little closer to home. We've just had a fascinating discussion with members of the Morning Majority about Jon Huntsman's statement that what this nation needs is someone who would appeal and rule from the right of center, that what we really need is somebody who will govern from the mushy middle. And, you know, there are those in our audience who said, well, you know, you're right. To some degree, you can't win without having independent and middle-of-the-road voters. And there are others who go with that old saying that, you know, the only thing you find in the middle of the road is white stripes and dead skunks, and we need to be true to what we truly believe. Where do you come down on all that?
You know, Jon Huntsman is rapidly shaping up to be the John Anderson of 2012. Maybe he'll run third party and get 1% of the vote or something. You know, you can't run as a moderate, and the reason is when you look at the moderates who have run in the past, they don't win. When you look at Bill Clinton, when he ran, he actually governed and actually ran with an ideological principled position. You knew where he stood on the issues. You may not have agreed with him, but you knew where he stood. When you look at the guys who kind of ran moderate, ran mushy middle. Bob Dole, for example, you weren't really sure where he stood. Funny thing is, I pulled up articles from 1980 this morning at Red State and looked to see what they were saying about Ronald Reagan, and it's hilarious the way the Washington Post, for example, ran a big expose on the eve of the convention in July of 1980 that most voters say they want an independent candidate who stands in the middle, and the Republican Party remains the only party in the nation that still stands proudly ideologically to the right, which suggests, according to experts, that they may not be able to beat Jimmy Carter.
All right,
how'd that work out for them?
That's very interesting. You follow politics very closely, and you know candidates very well. Would you call Jon Huntsman a moderate, though? I mean, is he? I mean, he was a pretty popular governor of Utah, not exactly a purple state.
His popularity, I think, is largely a myth. Yes, he did well in the public opinion polls, but when you look at what happened when he left, his popularity rapidly faded. And in Utah right now, where the election, the Utah convention or primary to be held tomorrow, he would lose to Mitt Romney. His popularity is largely premised on good economic times and not necessarily his own popularity. When you look at what he actually did, he is in favor of gay marriage. He was in favor of Barack Obama's stimulus plan. In fact, he was the Republican regularly trotted out, along with Charlie Crist of Florida, by the Democrats to say Republicans needed to stop opposing the stimulus.
Sarah Palin in Iowa. Karl Rove on Fox said that he believes if he was a betting man, he'd say that Sarah Palin's getting in. She had this great PAC commercial that was about 2 minutes long that's kind of hinted that there was a big announcement coming September 3rd. What are you hearing? What do you think about Sarah Palin getting in the race?
I long ago gave up on the idea that she was going to get in. I'll believe it when I see it at this point. God bless her if she gets in. It'll definitely shake up the race in a way that I think only Rick Perry getting into the race could shake it up. The problem for Sarah Palin, though, in all honesty, and I know Sarah Palin fans hate to hear these things, but when you look at the Gallup polling that they've been consistently polling on all the prospective candidates, Sarah Palin has a 95% name recognition and only 12% support. Now, that'll go up some because a lot of people aren't willing to support her because they don't think she's running, and if she gets in, it'll go up. But when you look nationally and state by state, she's already polling third or fourth behind Romney, Bachmann, and Perry, so it's not going to be hers for the taking when she gets in.
George Pataki, by the way, there's a story out there that says he's actually contemplating
I thought he was already in it, changed his name to Jon Huntsman.
But why would he even think about running? I mean, does he even think he has a chance to win, or does he want to put his name out there to be perhaps a vice president?
Maybe he's just looking at all these Republicans who get Fox News contracts, and he's thinking, if I can, I can get a contract.
Could be. All right, Eric, great to have you on the program. We appreciate your insights. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Erick Erickson, redstate.com. You can check him